Welcome, everyone, to another thrilling episode of Coffee and Propaganda. I'm Duncan King. Made a few technical changes to the show. Hopefully, they do not ruin it. I see some problems with it, but at least there's no Sparkle soft thing on the screen anymore. I got rid of that. So anyway, today we're going to continue to debunk the CARM.org website. CARM.org stands for Christian Apologetics Research Ministry. It is a website set up by Matt Slick, designed to introduce apologetics, defenses of the Bible, things like that. In the previous episode, we went into some of the issues that were not brought up in the CARM.org website, really dealing with Leviticus through Deuteronomy. And we will conclude that now. We got interrupted last time because I had to go pick up my son. And so in this episode, we're going to conclude that and then start into the book of Joshua on the CARM.org website. So join with me in our little exploration to the world of the internet. In the previous episode, we stopped here, talked about passages against Jesus that we found in the old Bible. And we're going to talk about some other things here. Balaam and the talking donkey. That's a fun one. Numbers 22, 21 through 31. And Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princess of Moab. Boy, am I childish when I'm giggling at the word ass. And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants was. I hate reading the King James Version. Fuck the King James Version. It's just awkward to read in today's English. I'm sure, there are passages in the King James Version that we know are quite beautiful, but for a modern speaker, they are a little awkward to read. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials, but God was very angry when he went. The angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey. The two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat it to get it back on the road. When the angel of the Lord stood in the narrow path through the vineyards, with walls on both sides, when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was very angry and beat it with a staff. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth and said to Balaam, "What have I done to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey said to Balaam, Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you? No, he said. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn, so he bowed low and fell face down. The very silly thing about this interaction here is, okay, your donkey starts talking to you, and instead of saying, "What the hell?" the donkey is talking. His answer is, "You've made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I'd kill you right now." It's so weird. The author of this is just a weird man to just not thought the initial reaction you'd have. "What have I done to make you beat me these 3 times?" says the donkey. Yeah. This is, okay, Stars in the Sky, Deuteronomy 1:10. Oh, I'm paying for not typing Deuteronomy in these links. So now every time I put it in here, I got to spell it out. Deuteronomy. The Lord your God has increased your numbers so that today you are as numerous as the stars in the sky. There are, of course, several passages in the Torah which declares the Israelites are as numerous as the stars in the sky, which is a very problematic thing to say for a couple reasons. Okay, what are the stars in the sky? Obviously, we know that there are a lot more stars in the universe than there are Israelites. And we also know that there are a lot more stars in the possibly observable sky than there are Israelites, or have been Israelites at any given time. Observable stars with telescope. We'll write that. See how many we can observe with a telescope. What can you see with this telescope? Number of 30 billion stars you can see. We must limit the discussion to what we can observe. Astronomers estimate that the observable universe has more than 100 billion galaxies. Our own Milky Way is home to about 300 billion stars, but it's not representative of galaxies in general. So looking through the telescopes, they can see all these galaxies, and obviously there's billions and billions of stars in the galaxies. So just what they can observe, we're talking about trillions of stars. Obviously, there weren't trillions of Israelites. But even then, okay, well, let's narrow that down. We'll talk about the number of Israelites the number of stars that they could observe with a naked eye. Well, that must be what they mean. Just looking into the stars of the sky, how many can you observe with a naked eye? Turns out that we have the opposite problem there. The number of stars you can observe with the naked eye actually is not very many. This is from a website called skyandtelescope.com. 9,096. Go out in the dark night and you'll swear there are thousands of stars in the sky, too many to count, 10,000 at least. Why guess when someone has already done the counting for you? Astronomer Dorrit Hefflate of Yale University, well known for her work with variable stars, compiled the Yale Bright Star Catalog decades ago. It tabulates every star visible from Earth to magnitude 6.5, the naked eye limit for most of humanity. You might be unsurprised when you read it, though. To answer the question, how many stars in the sky, the total comes to 9,096 stars visible across the entire sky, both hemispheres. So we only see half the celestial sphere at any moment. We necessarily divide that number by 2 to arrive at 4,548 stars. So that's all they could have seen. That's all the stars in the visible sky at any given moment to one individual. Total for the whole Earth is 9,000. And in the Torah, it says that there were over 600,000 fighting men alone, which we estimated to have been about 2.5 million Israelites. So visible in the night sky, quite a few less than the number of Israelites. Not visible with the naked eye, quite a bit more. Total stars, a ridiculous amount more. So this number, how many Israelites are stars, more Israelites than stars in the sky, misses the mark any way you interpret it. It misses the mark by a lot any way you interpret it. Passages about rape. Matt Slick skipped them. These are well-known problems with rape in the Bible, and for some reason he just didn't seem to pay any attention to it. When you go to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God delivers them into your hands, and you take captives, if you notice among the captives a beautiful woman, and are attracted to her, you may take her as your wife. Bring her into your home and have her shave her head, trim her nails, and put aside the clothes she was wearing when captured. After she has lived in your house and mourned her father and mother for a full month, then you may go to her and be your husband, and she shall be your wife. If you are not pleased with her, let her go wherever she wishes. You must not sell her or treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. Well, why are you saying that they could even do it anyway, since you're saying it's dishonored her? But anyway, I can't think of anything more dishonoring for a woman than killing her parents, killing her husband, killing her brothers, then taking her home and saying, "You're my wife now." Boy, that would be really terrifying for a woman. And that is, of course, rape. She has no choice in the matter. It doesn't say, hey, she can come to your house if you tell her how much you love her and ask her to marry you. Nope, you just take her, which is abduction and rape. Exodus 21:7, if a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as male servants do. There was more to that. I should have showed the whole passage in context. Exodus 21:7. Okay. If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. If he does not provide her with these three things, she is to go free without any payment of money. Boy, that sounds nice, but he still can sell your daughter to somebody. And so all these other, little niceties, these little, it still doesn't change the fact that he could sell his daughter to somebody. Yeah. Here is the most controversial passage about rape in the Bible. And the fact that Matt Slick did not mention this is very telling of his willingness to actually engage these topics. These are some pretty bad things. 28 through 29 are the other one. Let's just look at the whole chapter. 23 to 24. If a man happens to meet in a town a virgin pledged to be married and he sleeps with her, you shall take both of them to the gate of that town and stone them to death. The young woman because she was in a town and did not scream for help, and the man because he violated another man's wife. You must purge the evil among you. So basically, you're just saying they had sex and it wasn't rape, but she was pledged to be married to somebody. So obviously they're both bad people and kill them both. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man who has done this shall die. Do nothing to the woman. She has committed no sin deserving death. This case is like that of someone who attacks and murders a neighbor. For the man found the young woman out of the country, and though the betrothed woman screamed, there was no one to rescue her. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as she lives. So it's only a crime if the chick is engaged to another guy. If she's not engaged, then you didn't do anything that bad. You just pay the 50 shekels, and then you have to marry her. You must marry the woman. So no matter what in the scenario, she gets punished. She has to either marry her rapist, or if she doesn't scream for help, then she gets killed. And having to marry your rapist is a pretty severe, horrible thing to happen to you. You just pay some money. So that's a definite promotion of rape there. The whole concept of rape being bad, even in this context, is just that, well, you're raping another guy's wife or another guy's fiance. It doesn't have to do with the fact that she's a human being. That's got nothing to do with it. Fuck her. From the Bible. Let's go to one of the worst passages in the whole Bible, which makes the whole Bible, which is still plaguing us today, this passage, still destroying our societies. If a man has sexual relations with a man, as Don does with a woman, both of them had done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. We're all familiar with this because people like the Westboro Baptist Church hold signs up proclaiming this verse, displaying this verse for everyone to see. So it is one of the most evil verses in the Bible because people still believe this verse is a good verse. Homophobes do. So perhaps one of the worst verses in the Bible. And Matt Slick didn't mention it probably because he doesn't even see a problem with it. He's like, well, anyone who sees a problem with this is probably a sinner and an evil person because they're saying that we shouldn't kill homosexuals. All right, let's go back to the Carm.org website and continue into the book of Joshua. Joshua, by the way, is actually the same name as Jesus. Jesus was Yeshua. Joshua is an English pronunciation of Yeshua. So technically, this is the book of Jesus. If that word Joshua went through the same sort of language to language sort of changes that the word Jesus had gone to, this would be the book of Jesus. But we still call it the book of Joshua because it went straight from the Hebrew to the English. Or not straight from the Hebrew to the English, but I don't know what you would say. I guess you would say, yeah, because there wasn't a Greek version of Joshua. Well, of course there was a Greek version of Joshua. But it wasn't originally written in Greek. So I guess the Greek people who translated it didn't change it to their own version, like Yahushua, like they did with Jesus. I don't know. For some reason, we didn't end up calling this Jesus. It's still the book of Joshua. But anyway, Joshua to Esther. Oh, for some reason, he skips the book of Joshua. It says Joshua to Esther. We don't have anything here from the book of Joshua. Okie dokie. So I guess we're going right into the book of Judges. That gives me more work to do because this means there's all kinds of problems in Joshua. Well, this is a Judges passage. So it just gives me more work to do in the section I'm going to do after this because there's probably all kinds of problems in the book of Joshua. In fact, I know quite a few offhand. But anyway, Jeremiah 32:27 and Judges 1:19. The Jeremiah passage says, "Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is anything too difficult for me?" Now the Lord was with Judah, according to Judges, and they took possessions of the hill country, but they could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley because they had iron chariots. Titus 1:2, in the hope of eternal life, which God, who cannot lie, promises long ages ago. In Jeremiah, this is Matt Slick talking, in Jeremiah 32:27, God is speaking about his might and sovereignty. God can do anything he wants to do. In Judges 1:19, the Lord was indeed with Judah, but the fact that Judah could not drive out the inhabitants of the land does not mean that God couldn't do it. God often uses people and takes their failures into account when carrying out his ultimate plan. Titus 1:2 tells us that God cannot lie. Of course, this is not a contradiction since God cannot violate his own nature of purity. So when God says he can do anything, he does not mean that he can do those things that are contrary to what he is. I'll accept this one. You cannot lie. Whenever you're talking to Christians about God's omnipotent nature, they'll bring up things like God would not do something against his character, like lie or be an asshole. Even though the Bible clearly shows him being an asshole over and over and over again. But whatever, we'll take that. But when you're saying God has a plan, that's implying he's not omnipotent. Only a non-omnipotent being needs a plan to do anything. If you can do literally anything, if you're omnipotent and you have all the power in the universe, the idea that you would need a plan to accomplish some sort of aim implies that there are obstacles in the way of your wishes that you must overcome somehow through some sort of thinking, some sort of prearranged tactic to achieve whatever that obstacle was. An omnipotent being would not have that obstacle. He could just snap his fingers and the whole world would be exactly the way he'd want it to be at any given moment. He could change the whole world with a snap of fingers and make every single person replaced with people he prefers, and then snap his fingers again and make every single other person make a whole new world again every second that he feels like it. If he was truly omnipotent, there'd be nothing that would be harder for him than anything else. To even imply that he has a plan means that you don't understand the concept of omnipotence. So another situation that, depending upon the passage of the Bible that we're dealing with, whenever you're talking to apologists, they will suspend God's omnipotence. He's only omnipotent in this situation, not omnipotent in that situation. So the issue here with Matt Slick is that he does not understand what omnipotence is. Literally, if you're omnipotent, you can do anything. And the question, is God omnipotent or not, is a kind of a question that we're dealing with over and over and over again with these apologetics. And Matt's really not addressing because he doesn't understand the concept, the implications of what omnipotence is. The very idea that anyone could ever do anything that God disapproves of would mean he's not omnipotent. The very concept of being omnipotent implies that you cannot be defied. Whatever the state of things is, if you are omnipotent, is the state you approve of. Because nothing would limit you to just thinking of a change, and that change being reality. Why did the Israelites kill the people of Gilead? And the congregation sent 12,000 of the valiant warriors there and commanded them, saying, "Go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with the women and the little ones." Judges 21:10, another example of them killing children. As with so many difficult issues concerning the word of God, context is hugely important. In Judges 19:22 through 30, the wicked men of Gibeah, a city of Israel, the tribe of Benjamin, 1 Samuel 13:15, demanded sexual relations with the Levites who were staying at a house in that city. The owner of the house, to his utter shame, offered his virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine. Both the man and the Levite should have defended the women, even to their deaths. But they both failed miserably in their moral duty. Nevertheless, men of the city took the concubine, sexually abused her all night, and then released her. She died at the door of the house to which the Levi rested. Well, according to your Bible, they just had to pay 50 shekels of silver, and that would have been okay. Anyway, in the moment when the Levite discovered his concubine's body, he put her on his donkey, went home, took a knife, cut her into 12 pieces, and sent the body through body parts throughout all of Israel. Well, this is difficult for modern readers to understand, as well for the Levites' contemporaries, Judges 19:30. And all who saw it, nothing like this has ever been happened or seen happen on the day when the sons of Israel came for each of us. They consider it take. Yeah, it's kind of like what people said about Jeffrey Dahmer and the shit he did. Nothing has been seen like this until this day. It cuts the woman up and sends her body parts all over. I'm sorry, I'm laughing about this, but it actually did not happen anyway. So whatever. It's a fictional story. In Hosea 9:9, they have gone deep in depravity, as in the days of Gibeah. He will remember their iniquity. He will punish their sins. He meant to arouse the nation to action by calling for a national judicial hearing. Perhaps he was charging them with the responsibility of removing the blood guiltiness, strange combination of words, that rests on the entire nation for his concubine's death. The response of Israel to this incredibly horrible act was to gather at Mizpah as one man. The Levite explained the circumstances of his concubine's death and asked the people of Israel what to do. Then they decided to go against Gibeah in retribution. The people of Israel asked those of Gibeah to deliver into their hands those who had performed this wickedness, so that they might remove the evil from the land of Israel. Gibeah, which was of the tribe of Benjamin, refused, Judges 20:13. So war ensued, and Benjamin was defeated. Then, in researching their secondary problem, verse 25, the Israelites discovered that no one from the town of Jabesh Gilead, located about 9 miles east of Beth Shan, and 2 miles east of the Jordan River, had responded to the call of Mizpah Therefore, Israel wiped out all the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead, all of them except the 400 virgins and 600 men, so that their name might not be utterly destroyed, like it or not. That was a battle and reality of war in ancient Israel. What about this? He lists the verse, then he starts yippy-yapping about the situation. All he's doing here is just telling us what happened. This is what happened. We already know what happened. We can read the passage and see what happened. We just want to find out why they killed little children, and you're not even addressing it. It's just this sort of, like if this were a live conversation, I guess he's probably used to these kind of live conversations where people ask him questions and he starts blabbering. But you can't really pull off that trick in text, because all we do is to scroll up and say, hey, why didn't you deal with the issue of why they killed them little children? But anyway, according to your philosophy, the philosophy of the Bible, all they had to do was pay, what was it, 56 pieces of silver or shekels or whatever the hell it was. And they're fine raping somebody. Totally fine. First Samuel. Why would God order the destruction of men, women, and children? Well, okay, we've been asking this over and over and over again. And every time we ask this, you just say, well, it's a pretty tough thing. And the people were bad, so let's kill their children. This is a question we've been dealing with in your little section of the Bible here in the Bible difficulties over and over again. You never give me a good explanation. Maybe you'll give one this time. Let's see. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. Now he set himself against him on the way while he was coming up from Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that he has. Do not spare him, but put to death both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Matt's slick explanation. The Amaleks, who were descendants of Esau, have been longtime enemies of Israel. They fought against Israel at Rephidim. Rephidim. It's a cool name. Rephidim. I come from Rephidim, motherfucker. And Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. Apparently, they entertained a deep-seated grudge against them, especially as the rapid prosperity and marvelous experience of Israel showed that the blessing contained in the birthright, Jacob and Esau, was taking effect. They were a constant threat to Israel. So what he's saying is the birthright, Jacob had a birthright and Esau didn't. So through the Israel's victories, they were showing to the people that lived there that they did not have, that their patriarch from long ago did not have the birthright that he was told to have in the story. And Jacob, who is actually renamed Israel, so he's actually carrying his name around. So like they're watching Israel according to what Matt's saying here. And they're having all the success, and these people from the Amalekites, who are the sons of Esau, are like, God damn it. If only Esau had got the birthright. That pisses us off. Anyway, they were a constant threat to Israel. Therefore, God said to Moses in Exodus 17:14, write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. God lawfully has the right to execute judgment upon anyone. All right. There's a new explanation. Anyway, the Bible says that all people have sinned against God and under his righteous judgment. Therefore, the execution is not an arbitrary killing, nor it is murder. Murder is the unlawful taking of life. Killing is the lawful taking of life. Murder is the unlawful taking of life. Killing is the lawful taking of life. For example, we can lawfully take a life in defense of ourselves, our families, our nations, etc. That's kind of a stupid use of words here. Killing is murder is a wrongful killing, and killing is just killing. It's like saying that those aren't dichotomous things. Killing in that context would be like appendage is to hand. So my foot is an appendage, but it is not a hand. Killing, the act would be killing, but not murder, which is a more specific statement. We'll get to how bullshit this is in a second. Anyway, when God authorizes the nation of Israel to wipe out a people, it is lawful. It is a lawful execution due to the rebellion and sin against God. Furthermore, such an extermination can be seen to be merciful by delivering the young into the hands of the Lord and possibly saving their souls by not giving them time to become utterly sinful. Additionally, further generations that would have risen from the perverse culture are likewise prevented from coming into existence and spreading their sin. Good argument for abortion there, Matt Slick. I don't know if you're pro-choice or not. I'm guessing you're pro-life, but it seems like you're making an argument for abortion here. Or even for what would be called, what was that called? The eugenics movement. Yeah, let's kill out these people that come from a bad culture so that they don't grow up and be bad in that culture. Finally, one of the reasons that the Lord was so strong in the Old Testament and orders the killing of people is to ensure that the future messianic line will remain intact. The enemy Satan began his attempt to destroy God's people in the Garden of Eden by also trying to corrupt the world, which led to Noah's flood. By trying to destroy Israel with attacking armies and by encouraging Israel to fall into idolatry by exposure to other cultures as well as intermarrying women from those cultures. The result of both idolatry and the interbreeding would have been the failure of the prophecies that foretold of the coming of the Messiah. There is no actual prophecy in the Old Testament which tells anything about any Jesus. So fuck off. But the family line of the Messiah would come through Jesus. Messiah Jesus would be the one who died for the sins of the world. Blah, blah, blah. Yada, yada, yada. Assert your Christianity in the Old Testament where nothing in the Old Testament is about Christianity, so I don't give a fuck. Anyway, so basically he's saying anything God does is good. God has the right to execute judgment upon anyone. So if God kills little children, then it is by definition good. Since God has the right to do it, it's not murder because killing is the lawful taking of life. Murder is unlawful, and anything God does is lawful. So it comes to the moral question that I often ask people when I'm having a moral debate about Christianity. Is it good that what is good conforms to the will of God? And usually they'll say, when I ask that question, yeah. So what conforms to the will of God is good because it conforms to the will of God, and whatever conforms to the will of God is good. It's a tautology. It's not explaining why it's good. But basically, and then they'll say things like we have an automatic understanding of moral situations in our bodies or in our minds that God gave us. And our objection to this would be based upon automatic assertions that we have in our mind. We don't want children to die because we are naturally compassionate. Evolution explains that pretty well, but his view don't explain it very well. Here's this God doing something that we're going to naturally disapprove of, according to him. Why don't we have some kind of natural internal improvement of God killing people, killing children? Anyway, and then you have so many issues here, so many theological problems and theological band-aids that he's using here. I said before, there's another issue of him not understanding what omnipotence is. You could just fix this culture. And there's no reason why they had to kill children, just so that the children don't grow up to be assholes. You can freaking teach anyone anything. It's just totally unnecessary. And killing them, the evil they were blotting out, is nowhere close to the evil of killing children. They're trying to fix something by doing something worse than the thing they're trying to fix. Oh, they're jealous of the Israelites. So what? I don't give you an excuse to fucking kill their kids. If we take Matt Slick's worldview, I'd love to just copy this. If I ever end up in a debate with him and he brings up any kind of moral thing, I could just quote him right here. Because right here, he's basically doing what I claim Christianity is. The moral issues with Christianity. Because Christianity claims that every single human being deserves to be destroyed. And I say that all the time. And then they doubt it. Oh, that's not true. That's not what Christians believe. Yes, it is. Matt Slick said it right here. All people have sinned against God and under his righteous judgment. Therefore, execution is not arbitrary killing, nor is it murder. Everyone deserves to be destroyed according to Christianity. So if everyone deserves to be destroyed, how can you how can you be against the suffering of absolutely anyone? And Matt Slick is not against the suffering of anyone, no matter what happens to anyone. He believes it's good. So how can he be against the Israelites killing? We see an example of it right here. He's not against this killing because everyone deserves to be destroyed. Everyone deserves to die because all have sinned. And everyone deserves to go to hell. Not just the bad people, not just the really horrible people. According to Christianity, every single person deserves to go to hell. If you go into heaven, then that's some kind of gift from God. It isn't what you deserve. You don't deserve to go to heaven. So even believers, even the most righteous believers, according to Christian theology, deserve to go to hell. And if that's the case, then the Holocaust, or the slaughter of the children here, the Amalekites, children, it was all good because they had it coming for being sinners. Those children were born sinners. The people who died in the Holocaust, they're sinners. They had it coming, I guess. And if we are, and so to say anything is unjust, you have to assume my worldview. You have to presume that death is an unfortunate aspect of being a biological organism, that the savagery of humanity is an aspect of internal drives that we have that are uncivilized, that come from evolution. And you can still object to those internal drives because you have a sense of compassion, you have a symbolically interactive mind, which gives you the ability to reason and second guess certain carnal drives are savage and horrible because you are a compassionate person. He has to presume that view of life to call anything that happens to anyone unjust. If a child's raped, cut up, thrown in a ditch, you can't object to that according to Christianity. And you also go to the problem of omnipotence. Since God can't disapprove of anything, since he's an omnipotent being, then everything is by definition good. And if everything is by definition good, then nothing is bad. So when you're having a moral discussion with a Christian, a good question to ask them is, they'll ask you something like, how do you know something is objectively good? And a good question to ask them back is, how can you say anything is objectively bad? Because according to Christianity, every single thing that happens to anyone is good because it couldn't happen if God didn't at least passively approve of it. So if nothing can be bad, then that word good is useless. It's like the word, like before, now we have a word tube TV. So there are TVs that are called tube TVs, which means that they're not digital. So we have tube TVs and digital TVs now. Before those digital TVs existed, every TV was a tube TV. So they didn't have that word tube TV. That word only becomes necessary when there's another thing, which would be the digital TV. It's the same thing with morality. If every single thing is good, if there are no bad things that could ever possibly happen, because an omnipotent being would have to approve of everything, and every single thing that happens would be according to his will, and whatever happens according to his will is by definition good, according to Christianity. Then there can be no bad things that ever happen. And if there are no bad things that can ever happen, then the word good is useless. You can't have a real moral discussion with a Christian if you actually take their beliefs to their logical conclusion. Either that, or you got to say, well, God's not omnipotent. He can't do everything. Or God doesn't know everything that's going to happen. That's a way you could go to, but there are a few Christians who will say that God doesn't know everything. And there are problems with that too. There's no way to make Christian theology coherent. Anyway, enough for my rant right now. Let's go back to more of Matt Slick's nonsense. And we'll finish with 1 Samuel today. Did or did not God know who David was? 1 Samuel 16:19 through 23, and 1 Samuel 17:55 through 58. Yes, Saul knew David, according to 1 Samuel. So Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Send me your son David, who is with the flock." And Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread and a jug of wine and a young goat and sent them to Saul by David his son. Then David came to Saul and attended him. And Saul loved him greatly and became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, "Let David now stand before me, for he has found favor in my sight." So it came about, whenever the evil spirit from God came to Saul, David would take the harp and play it with his hand, and Saul would be refreshed and be well, and the evil spirit would depart from him. That's 1 Samuel 16. So now we have 1 Samuel 17, which is later. Now when Saul saw David going out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is this young man?" And Abner said, "By your life, O king, I do not know." And the king said, "You inquire whose son the youth is." So when David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the Philistine's head in his hand. And Saul said to him, "Whose son are you, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of the Bethlehemite." At 6 explanations, several possible explanations exist to explain the problem, ranging from textual error to the method of the ancient right. That'd be some textual error. Oh my goodness! If you just went through these three passages and see how many textual errors would have to involve to actually change what they're actually saying here. To mean, in this passage he actually did know who he was, or in this passage he didn't know who he was. That'd be some really, really wild textual errors. Anyway. Several possible explanations exist to explain this problem, ranging from textual error to the method of the ancient writers to write about themes and then come back to fill in the gaps later. I think the best explanation can be found looking at the context. There is no contradiction. Saul was simply asking David whose son he was. He knew David, but probably didn't know who's David's father. Since David has just saved Israel, Saul wanted to know who his father was, probably to show the father proper respect for his son David. In 1 Samuel 16, the Spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and an evil spirit came and afflicted Saul. David came and then played for Saul to soothe him. Chapter 17 begins with the well-known story of David and Goliath, with no mention of how much time passes between David playing the harp and Goliath's challenge. It may very well have been that many months or even years. It may very well have been many months or even years. Nevertheless, David was the youngest of the sons of Jesse, who was a youth and who attended the flocks. David is then known as a young musician and sheep herder, not a warrior, as were his three eldest brothers. Saul and David have conversations about David doing battle with Goliath, and Saul offers David his armor. David refuses the armor and goes out to kill Goliath. Saul then asks Abner, "Whose son is this young man?" And Abner said, "By your life, O king, I do not know." In verse 58, Saul says, "Whose son are you, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite." Okay, I just go over it again. We just read this right here. So let's see if it's just about whose son he is. Now, when Saul saw David going out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is this young man?" Well, he did, but here's your issue. He said this young man. He didn't say David. And Abner said, "By your life, O king, I do not know." And the king said, "You inquire whose son the youth is." So when David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the Philistine's head in his hand. Saul had said to him, "Whose son are you, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite." I'll let this one go. He never said who is the young man. He just keeps saying whose son is he. But here's the issue. Why does he keep calling him the young man, the youth, the young man? He never calls him David, as a normal person would in this situation if he knew Whose son are you, young man? Even to his face, he says, young man, young man, young man. So that's why there's an implied contradiction here. But Matt Slick can get away with this one, or Christian could get away with this one, because he never specifically says, I don't know who he is. He just keeps calling the young man, the youth, the young man. And here he's calling him David. So in this passage, send me your son David. Then Solomon his armor. Let David now stand before me. David. Pass. So specifically, he's saying this, though, he's calling him David here. And then here he's calling him the young man. Obviously, what probably happened was this story was added by a later editor. And this story is actually older than this story. And the editor that added this wanted to put a narrative here where Saul knew David prior to meeting him after the killing of the Philistine, the giant, Goliath. So this was added later. It's purely implied by this, but Matt Slick can get away with, we'll let him get away with it, even though we are kind of arguing here. That he never actually asks him who he is. He just keeps saying, whose son is the young man? And he called him David here before to his face, and now he's calling him the young man and the youth. Whatever. We'll let it go. Oops. Oopsie, oopsie. Who killed Goliath? 1 Samuel 17:50 and 2 Samuel 21:19. According to 1 Samuel 17:50, David did. Then David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and he struck the Philistine and killed him, but there was no sword in David's hand. 2 Samuel 21:19. And there was a war with the Philistines again at Gob. And Elhanan and his son Abjar Origim, the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath, the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. That's Slick's explanation. The answer lies in two areas. 1 Chronicles 25 says, and there was war with the Philistines again, and Elhan, son of Jar, killed Lachmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. This is the correct answer, namely that Elhanan killed Goliath's brother. Second, it appears that there was a copyist error in 2 Samuel 21:19. According to Gleason Archer's Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties, on page 179, it says, the sign of the direct object, which in Chronicles comes just before Lami, was T. The copyist mistook it for bit, or byt, Beth. Thus got Bet Hal Lami, the Bethlehemite, out of it. He misread the word for brother, H, as a sign of direct object right before Goliath. Thus, he made Goliath the object of killed instead of the brother of Goliath. Copyist misplaced the word for weavers so as to put it right after Elhanan as his patronymic. And Chronicles, the Orgrim weavers comes right after mentor, thus making perfectly good sense. Therefore, we see that 2 Samuel 21:19 had a copyist error, and 1 Chronicles 25 is the correct information. So in 25, it's agreeing with this one because it's saying in 25 that Elhanan killed the brother of Goliath. And then in this one, it's saying that David killed Goliath, and here it says Elhanan killed Goliath, not the brother of Goliath. You know, I'm not going to comment because honestly, I don't know about this problem. And he's calling this a copyist error. I'm not just going to take his word for it. I'll have to actually look this up myself. And so 1 Chronicles obviously seems to agree with 1 Samuel. 2 Samuel obviously seems to not agree. He's king as copyist error. I'd have to look it up and find out. It's possibly a copyist error. I mean, there's worse copyist errors in the Bible than that one. So I'm not saying it isn't possible, but I'll have to look it up. Maybe there's some scholars who say it certainly isn't a copyist error. I'll have to see. Who killed Saul? Saul did, according to 1 Samuel 31:4. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and pierce me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and pierce me through and make sport of me." But his armor-bearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. So Saul took his sword and fell on it. According to 2 Samuel 1:8-10, the Amalekite did. Now he said to me, "Who are you?" And I answered him, "I am Amalekite." And he said to me, "Please stand beside me," and killed me, for agony has seized me because of my life still lingers in me. So I stood beside him and killed him, because I knew that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown which was on his head and the bracelet which was on his arm, and I have brought them here to my Lord. Matt Slick's explanation. 1 Samuel 31:4 gives what actually happened, while 2 Samuel 1:8-10 only gives what the Amalekite said happened. Most probably, the Amalekite took the opportunity to benefit from the king's death, gathered his crown and bracelet, and brought them to David. Unfortunately for the Amalekite, David said in 2 Samuel 1:13-16, and David said to the young man who told him, "Where are you from?" And he answered, "I am the son of an alien, an Amalekite." And David said to him, "How is it you were not afraid to stretch out your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" And David called one of the young men and said, "Go, cut him down." So he struck him and he died. And David said to him, "Your blood is on your head, for your mouth has testified against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed." The Amalekite probably thought he'd benefit from bringing the king's possessions to David, but his plan backfired. This isn't a problem. I mean, we see from the passage, obviously, what the issue was. It really isn't confusing. I've never heard anyone bring up this as a criticism. Obviously, that's the story. Saul killed himself, and then this guy said he killed Saul and betrayed himself when he was talking about it. So, "Where are you from?" "I am son of an alien." They said, "How is it you're not afraid to stretch your hand and destroy the Lord's anointed?" And David called one of the young, say, killed him, because the guy says, "Please stand behind me and kill me, for agony seizes my..." 1 second. "So does armor bearer, draw your sword, pierce me through with it, otherwise these circumstances will come pierce me to me." And then he said to me, "Please stand beside me, kill me, for agony has seized me. So my life slingers me." So I stood beside him and killed him, because I knew he could not live with after he fall. I took him a crown which was on his head. So he had a crown on his head. "And I have brought them here to my Lord." So David obviously outsmarted this guy because he was talking about the crown. It's just kind of, he's saying he wouldn't do it if he knew that he was a king, the anointed king of the Jews or Israel. I don't think there's a confusion here. I can't picture anyone bringing this up as a criticism. The texts make it clear kind of what happened. The Amalekite lied. Anyway, that'll be all for today. I finished up with, we went through the book of 1 Samuel, and next time we will go into the book of 2 Samuel. And until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this came out well. I've changed the way I've done all this stuff with the camera. I hope it's not too much of a delay and my mouth's actually matching my mouth. Probably not matching it very well, because I'm noticing the video is much quicker now. But anyway, I hope it looks good. Hope I don't have to redo this video. And subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this, whatever this is. And thanks for watching.